I realized I didn't have a mic. My apologies. That sounds different, right? All right. So we're handing out pieces of paper right now so that if you have any questions and you didn't have an opportunity to answer each individual presenter right after they spoke, that you write your questions down, because we don't want you to feel as though you are being ignored. We don't want to do that. So at some point, what we're going to do is we're going to stop the questions after a certain number of presenters have gone, and then at the end of the presentation, we'll allow you guys to ask more questions, but we'll take the questions from the sheets of paper that you have written the questions on. So we will have live questions, but then we're going to stop the live questions and then collect the papers and ask the questions afterwards. All right? Anyone missing a question sheet? Missing a question sheet? It's both sides, so just share if you can. Thank you very much. And if you already asked questions and there are individuals that may want to write their questions down, please share your question sheet with them. Is that okay? All right, so like I said, we already had a word of prayer. I believe we're live now. And we would like to welcome everyone to our financial, mortgage, and real estate seminar here at the First Seventh-day Adventist Church of Paterson, New Jersey. So give yourselves a hand for showing up. Give yourselves a hand, because you're not going to regret that today. You're not going to regret being here. So we have some awesome panelists here today. I'm going to introduce them from your left to the right. So we have Mr. Christopher Thaw. And Christopher is, what do we call Christopher? Christopher is a young man that has done so much in his life already for his age. And we won't ask him his age, but I think he's early 30s. Oh, he doesn't mind. Christopher is 35 years old and has accomplished so much at his age that he's here to share that information with you. Christopher is going to tell us what he does when it's his time to speak. And I can just tell you personally, I've known Christopher since he was just born. Since he was just born. And I am just very proud of him. Very proud of him. So let's give Christopher a hand. And then we have our very own Sandy Golding. And Sandy is in charge, well, not in charge, but she's running the finance team here at the First Seventh-day Adventist Church in Paterson. Oh, clap her up. She's doing a great job. She's doing an awesome job. And Sandy is also a wealth advisor. She's going to talk to us a little bit about what she does and help us to try our best to get where we need to be in this life. So. And then we have Mr. Delano Dowdy, who just pretty much got off the plane from the sunny island of, guess where? Jamaica, man. So he just got back and he came specifically to be here to share information. So Delano Dowdy is an entrepreneur and also a financial advisor. All right, so let's clap him up and he's going to share his information with us as well. We also have with us Mr. Antron Daly. Mr. Antron Daly is a mortgage representative. He works for Annie Mac Home Mortgage. And I've known Mr. Antron Daly for quite some time as well. He assists individuals, especially our types, in obtaining mortgages. When things seem tight, he makes it right. Come on, relax. Thank you, thank you. So that being said, we're happy to have Mr. Daly here with us today. So let's get to our panelists and have them share their information with us. Oh, sorry, I'm Violet. My name is Violet Smith Gilmore. I am I'm an entrepreneur, haven't worked for anyone since I was 25, and I am, and I'm still 25. I'm just joking. I am an entrepreneur, and I run my own real estate brokerage, and I have a real estate school as well. And I would like to share my information with you as well, if you don't mind. All right? Thank you so much. Oh, yes, we're going to share some water. We love this church because they always think about people. We love this church. Thank you so much. Sister Miller, thank you. All right. So we're going to begin. So I would like to have Sandy begin to share her information. So go ahead, Sandy. You have some information to share with us.
There you go. Hi, everybody. I like to stand. um, as you may know, I am the finance chair for the church here at Paterson. And in my job, I do a lot of financial information. But I'm going to do what Jesus Christ did. I'm going to create an upside-down kingdom today and not necessarily go in that realm. That's something that we can definitely address in the question and answer. But I want to propose to everybody here, just a little bit about me. I'm in a second marriage. My husband, Doug, is right over there. We got 4 kids, 3 bonus kids, and my own biological son. We are grandparents. We live here in Paterson. We are working on owning a place in Jamaica. We have a place in New York. So God has blessed us in a very roundabout, unusual way. And as we all know, God doesn't do things linear or straight up or down. But the Bible is the best wealth-building manual there is, okay? It gives us the principles that we should obey and live by. This will get us out of debt. It will keep us out of debt, not only for ourselves, but also for our family and generations to come. So there are four principles that I want to talk to you about, and this is strictly from the Bible. And I'm going to share resources as well. Now, these are things that you might all already know, but as I said, this is an upside-down way of doing building wealth through God's eyes. So first of all, Christian theology determines our success. God is the owner. Anybody here owners of created this earth? Anybody? Okay. So who's the owner? Okay. And then what does that make us? Stewards. We're stewards. Okay? Deuteronomy 8:18 tells us about our stewardship and what we need to do for Christ. God is the one that gives us the power to create wealth. Always, always, always. So no matter how much you may be worth or how little you may have, God gives us that strength and the power to be able to create that little or that much that he has given us. Okay? Thirdly, generosity is God's primary tool that he gives us in the wealth building process. Proverbs 11:25 tells us about how generosity is one of the stepping stools that we must, not a negotiable, without being generous. If you're going to be like this, dropping little pennies in people's hands without doing this, you're limiting the ability that you're limiting what you can get that God has in store for us. He's not withholding it, but if you're pushing your hand like this in the jar to take it out, you're not going to get anything. So that's the third principle. Number 4, and I know you're all going to get this one, because I know we're in a smart church. God has blessed you all. I can see the radiance on your faces. I can see the glistening in the little brooches. So God has blessed you guys. So stewardship is the 4th principle, returning a faithful tithe and offering. This is the beginning of wealth. We know what the tithe is, okay? But we need not forget being generous in our offering. That is another wealth building tool. So, a little bit of my own story in trying to flesh out these principles. And my man here, he's going to give us a brain freeze once he starts talking. But a little bit of my own story is I was divorced, broke, I lost my house, lost my car, lost that one son that I gave birth to, and I was homeless. Believe it or not, I was homeless. Somebody from the church was able to take me in so I could live in this little tiny cupboard in the basement. This was back in 2005. And I was a newly baptized Christian at that time, and I was just struggling to make ends meet, And what did I forget? My tithe and my offering. Believe it or not, my brand new dresses with pockets developed holes. My pocketbook developed holes. No matter how much I worked and scrimp and scrape, the car broke down, the refrigerator went, you name it, everything went wrong. And until I I don't know, it was a sermon or the Holy Spirit speaking to me, reminded me of that basic principle, tithe and offering. Oh, I'm going to pay back. And you never can catch up. But I believe you not, God, when I made that vow, and it's a non-negotiable to this day, not to ever, no matter what is going on in my life, ever forget my tithe or my offering. And I can absolutely tell you, God opened up the storehouse. God opened the storehouse. And I cannot tell you enough about that. So all the resources and all the information that you're going to hear here, it is invaluable because God has gifted each of us with individuals who are godly and who can bring to us tools and resources that can help us on our way. And I was able to get that help. I was able to go back to school. I was able to finish my education. I was able to get my licenses. And God gave me the ability to be able to break down the information that He has given me in a way that helped a lot of people that I work with on my workplace. So the premise starts with our mindset and knowing that first we put God first in everything else and watch how He makes the rest of the things happen. So, and in doing all of that, we must never forget our health. We can't break our health trying to get wealth, because then that same wealth that you built up, you're going to be spending it to get your health back. Please, my family, please listen to what I'm saying and listen to what we all are going to be sharing here this evening. So some of the resources that are out there within the city of Paterson, the mayor has a financial fitness program. It's on the website. I can always get that information to you later. There's an organization called NACA. They also help individuals with their mortgages and getting mortgages and helping you get out of debt. There's New Destiny Family Success Center. They also just recently got a grant that will help seniors in getting themselves out of debt or saving their homes. So there are tons of resources that we're going to we're bringing to the table here. And I just want to leave you with, one other thing I forget. Patrick Thaw, this is Chris' father. He has done the Dave Ramsey's program. And for a nominal fee, because you got to pay for the material, he will do one of those programs for a number of people if you ever want to do that, and will help you create and get yourself out of debt and help create financial wealth. So those are the resources that I have to give right now, and I still want to leave you with: seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added onto you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Sandy. Does anyone have any questions for Sandy at this point? She did share some personal details, which we really appreciated you doing that. You didn't have to. So we have a hand. Can you take this mic right here, sir? Can someone pass out the mics? Help me with the mics. You could take this one right here. This is Mr. Golding. And while he's getting his mic ready, his name is Golding. Get it? Gold.
Thank you for sharing. Did you ever, in your journey of overcoming those obstacles, you mentioned that you were you ever tempted to file for bankruptcy?
I'm so glad you asked that. Yes. At one point, I was so much in debt, creditors calling me all the time. I can't tell you how much phone calls I used to get. And because I was a Christian, I could not take the calls. So I was so stressed out about it that I did contemplate doing that. But fortunately, the Lord opened up a door where that was part of my finishing up my education that helped me to get into a job that was able to pay me enough that I was able to make a deal with the creditors, was able to come to some agreement. It wasn't a debt consolidation. Just each creditor made an agreement with them to pay X amount of dollars over X amount of time and was able to slowly pay that off. I took a lot of sacrifice. I did not spend money on anything except what I needed for rent, food, and gas in a car. And I made that sacrifice because it was such a tremendous burden having that debt over my head and seeing the future of my son at the time. I wasn't remarried then. It was like it was flying away, and I wanted to be able to give him the opportunity to go to college. So thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Sandy at this time? Yes.
Hi, Sandy. I just got here. I'm sorry. So were you married at the time that you had to made that sacrifice?
No, I was a single mom.
Okay, so what would your advice be if, I guess you can only hypothetically answer this, if you did have a spouse and your spouse wasn't really on board with you making that sacrifice? Because just personally, that's what the experience that I have. I grew up with very little, so I can manage with very little. But my wife, she's a very abundant spirit. She likes nice things. She likes to do a lot of nice shopping and going out to eat and vacations and stuff like that. So we kind of have a disconnect where she wants a lot of those things that you can get by building wealth, homes, investment accounts, all of those type of things. What would, I guess, you or anybody on the panel suggest if you do have a spouse that's not necessarily on board with making those sacrifices? Thank you.
Thank you for asking. And my nephew here would like to answer that.
And you should answer that as well, hon.
Yeah, so I actually have, well, so I'm not married, but my fiance back there in the blue, we're scheduled to be married next year, probably late October. And I would say we have the same exact dynamic that you just described, where I'm very frugal, as I'll go into, which is my time to sort of speak on my experience, and she's very not. And in order for what our marriage is going to be to work, we're going to have to come to some sort of agreement as to how we manage money. So I don't know if what I'm about to say is controversial, but as the man, you have the responsibility and the authority to sort of decide how your household is going to manage money. That's my belief. And whether or not, your wife has the same exact philosophy about spending money or not, one of the ways you should respect that is to actually honor the fact that you are the man and your goal is to provide and protect the household. And one of the tenets of protection is money, is wealth, because that's how we live, that's how we eat, that's how we have a roof over our heads. As far as like a practical solution, agree on a budget. Because actually, one of the things that could actually happen, because you're so used to spending so little money, because you're so used to living so below your means, you may go extreme in the opposite direction, where there is space for a middle ground, where you're probably spending more than you're comfortable, but you're still spending under where it's dangerous. And it's up to you and your wife to sort of find that middle ground where okay, we're not going to run out of money if we buy a bag here, we go on a vacation here, and she's happy enough to like, okay, we're not living in poverty. But yeah, I can't stress the action of just creating a budget at the beginning of every month, agree on what you're going to be spending, but then at the same time, it's important that your wife actually does respect the fact that your approach to money is in favor of the household.
Hi. So one of the problem that is plaguing our society, especially African American, is credit. So what advice would you give someone? They pay their debt, however, they still have a bad credit. How could they go about to fix that credit so that they can move forward? They're not in a point where they're filed bankruptcy or need debt consolidation. The credit damage happened, they pay the bills, but the credit is still bad.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. That's perfect timing because right now we're going to go over to Mr. Antron, who that is really his subject matter. All right, so let's give Sandy a hand and we'll end this segment until later. Write your questions down if you have more questions for Sandy. So now Antron is going to take it over. Just reintroduce yourself, Antron, and make sure you answer that question when you're finished.
Hello there. I'm Antron Daly. I'm with Annie Mac Home Mortgage. And, I came in here looking one way, and now hearing the conversations that we're having and what we're talking about, I'm going to look at it a different way. And what I did is this. I have some handouts here for you. And what we have to understand sometimes is that, and I'll get back to the credit part, but we have to understand that when we have credit issues, it normally took us a couple of years to get to that position, which means that when we start working on it, it might take us a little bit of time to get to that point also. So whatever we do, we have to understand that we have to be consistent and actually say this is the plan that we're going to do. So what I did is my first handout is renting can be hazardous to your health, to your wealth. Same thing, because if you get a lot of debt, you get sick. But if you look at it, if you pay somebody $1,200 a month for 1 year, for 5 years, you're going to end up paying them $72,000 over that period of time. If you're the landlord, you love that. But as a person looking to build your wealth, it drains you. And what we have to understand sometimes is that our mindset, as you said, has to change. Because, what is it? As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So we sometimes have to change our thinking. And with my first handout, when I'm doing these seminars, I tell you, put this on your refrigerator. Just go home, take it, hang it on your refrigerator. The refrigerator is the most open door in your house. Every time you walk to your refrigerator, you will see how much you're paying that landlord. Now, if you're the landlord, or if you want to be a landlord, put it on your refrigerator also, because this is how much you could collect. But we have to understand that sometimes we have to set that goal. I gave you 2 of those. Take the second one, put it in the bedroom mirror. Every time you want to keep reminding yourself, every time you're at home, you're in somebody else's house. You want to make sure that that happens. Now, the next thing that I gave you is the documents that are required. A lot of times when we're thinking about home ownership, we think it's hard. We think that it's a whole lot of work to get together to buy a house. But I'm going to tell you this. You only need 4 things. You need credit, you need income, you need a house, you need the house that you're going to buy, and you're going to need the down payment. So if we put all of those things together, they're not hard to do. I'm going to ask you for your W-2s, your pay stubs, and a bank statement. Well, why? Now, depending on that question, is this. And the question is always, why don't you? Now, if you're self-employed, is that the answer? Okay. So again, there's always a solution to a question or a problem. And once we look at that situation, we then have to put a plan in place. And a lot of time, and again, I always go back to whatever your plan is going to get you to the next step. So as long as we're able to put a plan in place, those things happen. Believe it or not, there's programs out there right now that say, I'm not going to ask you for your documentation, but I am going to make sure that whatever you're buying pays for itself. So we have to look into those things. And again, every question, there's an answer, and to most problems, there's a solution. And that's all we're looking to do. And a lot of times we have to make sure that the mindset that we have is, I can do this. You have to keep saying to yourself, you can do this. Just like Sandy said, she had issues. The bottom line is, she said, I can get through this. She was able to do it. All of us, I don't care who you are sitting in here right now, has a problem, had a problem, and has to deal with something. It's just, how do we look at doing whatever it is we're supposed to do? The next thing I have here is your do's and don'ts. Once you start buying, once you have the mindset and says to yourself, I'm going to buy, certain things you have to stop doing, certain things you have to start doing. And on this list, it tells you, if you want to buy a house, you can't go out and buy a new car. It just doesn't make sense. There's a group out there that I work with constantly, and it's called The House, Then the Car. You can buy a car from anybody with the worst credit any day of the week, but you can't buy a house. So if you buy the house, you automatically can get a car. It's literally just that simple. So we have to make sure that we put our priorities in the right order. The next one I have is the mortgage process, and it's simple. You get me your pay stubs, W-2s, bank statements. That's all you have to give me. We look at it. I will pull the credit report. If you have credit issues, we then put a plan in place and say we're going to follow it. I have worked with people. I'll give you one quick story and then I'll stop. Quick story is this. Husband and wife came to me, had horrible credit, great jobs, both made decent money, great jobs, horrible credit. They said, we want to buy. I said, fine. We took 6 months to get their credit to the minimum so that we could get them into the house. We did what's called the 203K, a rehab loan. They bought the house, rehabbed it. 18 months later, They called me again. Said, can we buy another house? We bought another house 18 months later. 18 months later, they called me up and said, we found this house in Kenneland. Anybody know where Smoke Rise is? And they said, we want to move there. We were able, and this is like in 3 years, to go from horrible credit, no house, to going to Kenneland and having 3 houses. So whatever your plan is, it's easy as long as you stick to it. The loanopoly is this: you give me the paperwork, I have a processor. She reviews the paperwork, I give it to an underwriter, the underwriter approves it. It's truly just that simple. A lot of times we make things hard, but as long as we start with the right foundation, we're able to put the mortgage together to get you in your house. And the good thing about us is that a lot of times we don't understand how easy it is to do certain things, and then we're intimidated to ask the questions to get to the next step. So my thing is this, is that if you don't know something and you don't ask the question, then you don't deserve the answer. If you don't know something and don't ask the question, you don't deserve the answer. We're supposed to get whatever it is we need to do. And we're sitting here talking about God. What happened? God always puts what's needed in front of you as long as you're a believer. You do what he says. God is God. And the hardest part for me, and for me sometimes is to remember how good God can be. We get up and we pray and we do X, Y, Z, but do we believe that God is going to do what God says he's going to do? And God will do it as long as you do what you're supposed to do so that you can get there. You know, I know it's not in the Bible, what's that? But if you take one step, he's going to take the next. We know it ain't there, but guess what? It's real, though. If you start, it will happen. And my last one is a couple of choices for mortgages. It just lets you know you can do FHA, you can do conventional, you can do rehabs. All of these loans are available. And she's like that all the time. Thank you. That we sometimes get put into squares, into little boxes. We have to understand that most of the programs out there work for us. So when you hear somebody say something and they say it sounds impossible, well, yeah, the state of New Jersey is giving you $15,000. And if you're buying in certain areas, it is giving you $21,000. But you have to qualify for it. You have to put all your paperwork together. But it's there. And sometimes it might take you another year to get to it. I'm Antron Daly. I'm with Annie Mac Home Mortgage. My website is myonlylender.com. Thank you.
Was your question answered about the credit? Okay, great. We have another question right here. Thanks, Doug.
Hi, good afternoon. My question is, you mentioned that the couple did 3 houses in approximately 3 years. Is that correct? Did they need 20% down on the second and third home?
They were lucky enough to have, what happens is this. As long as you have 25% in one house, your next house you can buy with 3% down, 3.5% down, 5% down. Each house was owner occupied. So they moved from one house to the next house. All we had to do was just document why it made sense for them to move from one house to the new house. So, yeah.
Thank you.
And Correct me if I'm wrong, but is that because they had equity in the house? Okay. And can you explain equity for individuals that may not know about equity?
So I said that the first house they bought was a rehab house. So I think they paid something like $175,000 for it. They put $50,000 into rehab, had a $225,000 mortgage, but the house was now worth $300,000. So now they had the equity in that one. And again, like I said, they had good jobs. They were, they were in a great position. They just had bad credit. So the next house, we did exactly the same thing. Yes. And we were able to use the rental incomes from both of those houses.
So does that goes with your taxes? Do you have tax that, reframe it. Does your tax have to be the same when you buy the first house, or it can be less?
Well, each house carries its own tax. So was that the question? Yeah, each property, they can be identical and side by side, and one could be $200 less in taxes than the house next door. So yes, each house had its own taxes. And if you're talking about on your personal taxes, yes. So when they did their taxes on the purchase of the second house, they didn't have to show any taxes, any income from the house. But when we bought the third house, we were now able to show both houses with what their mortgage payment was and what we were collecting in rent. So they weren't losing any money. It didn't hurt them at all. So it was like they had no properties because the houses paid for themselves. Oh, thank you.
So, question. Do you recommend that the people who have equity in their homes, let it sit there, or should they use it to?
That's a really loaded question. And I look at it like this. I buy a house for it to work for me, not for me to work for it. So if you have a house and it has $200,000 in equity in it, every day you come home and you walk past $200,000. It does nothing but you can say, yeah, I got equity, I got $200,000. But if you took the $200,000 and bought another one, now that equity is growing here, here, and here. And what a lot of people do, just for safety, they'll take that equity out, they'll buy that next house, they'll sell that house, put their equity back, but put the money in the bank, not back into the house. Don't pay down the mortgage, because sometimes, and financial people are going to do this, sometimes your money works better for you when somebody who knows what they're doing is working it for you. So you can look at your 200,000 and it might not grow, but if you 200 is a substantial number. So if you have the right financial people, you can just keep buying houses and just keep adding to your platform.
Okay. And you do that. You do that. So someone could come to you and they have equity in their house, and you help them to get to the next level.
Oh yeah, I'll put it like this. So in Newark, I do a lot of Essex County. So Newark started to change maybe about 4 years ago, and you could still get a 2-family or a 3-family for $250, and people were taking the equity out so that they could get that 2-family, 3-family house. You're not going to find a house in Newark right now, single family, under $450. So now if you're sitting on a 2-family, you're sitting on a lot of equity. And now those guys are all calling back and saying, we're going to take a little more out. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is the last question before we move on, and then you can write your questions down for Antron for mortgage purposes.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So this question is online viewers, and it says, as a landlord, is it necessary to have substantial savings set aside in the event that tenants fail to pay rent? As a landlord, is it necessary to have substantial savings set aside in the event that tenants fail to pay rent?
Yes. Yes. You know, like in New Jersey, it's one of the hardest places to get people out. So yeah, so when you're trying to get somebody out, yes, you need to have enough money because the bank does not care that they didn't pay you. They want to be paid. A lot of times when we do refis and it's an investment property, they might say you have to have 3 months of mortgage payments sitting in the bank when you close.
Thanks for your answer.
Okay, thank you also to our online viewers. We appreciate that. Continue to send the questions in, and thank you for just being here. All right, so now we're going to move on. Please write your questions down. We're still going to have another question and answer session at the end. We have 3 more presenters pretty much. Percent I would have to come up with, right? So that's why I encourage individuals. And you say, "Oh, I don't want to live with anyone." I've heard a lot of stories. People, "I don't want to live with anyone. I don't want to be bothered." Right? You have to think about it like this: if it's for a short period of time and it's for the benefit of generational wealth, it makes sense. Because we did live with individuals for a while. It was not easy That's when I turned into a property manager, by the way. It was not easy, but that allowed us to get the next home and the next home. And I'm going to let Delano tell you about the next home because he's involved with the next home. But the fact of the matter is, it allows you to save money and build wealth. And equity is always built whenever you purchase a home, correct? So we think that, okay, we're spending a lot of money when we buy a home, but we get that money back through equity, which we could pull out and buy even more real estate. So you see up on the screen there that we have steps to your home ownership. And I think Mr. Antron touched on a few of these, right? So you have to save for your down payment. We talked about that already. Avoid major purchases. We talked about that. Credit score. We talked about that. You definitely have to also have funds saved up for your closing costs. So it's not just down payment, it's also closing costs. If you want more information on that, you could talk to Sir Antron here. You first, many people like to go to the realtor first, right? In order to, one second. So many people like to talk to the realtor first, but I always send them back to the mortgage representative because I can't help you unless you are what? Pre-approved. Pre-approved. Now, is there a difference between pre-approval and pre-qualification? Okay, can you touch on that for a second?
Pre-approved means this, that you've given me all of the documents and I've given it to my underwriter, and she said, as long as you buy a house within these numbers, you're fine. Pre-qual means that you called me up, I ran your credit report, you told me your income was $100,000, and that's what I based everything on. But a pre-approval means I've actually seen, documented, and gotten you underwritten.
Thank you for clearing that up, because many people will come and they say, I am pre-qualified. I don't work with pre-qualified individuals because it could be a waste of time. I worked with individuals that are pre-approved. All right? And so then your next step is you can turn to the next page. I just have a tip, right? So when you are looking for a home, try to make sure that you know where you want to live, right? Because the agent that you're working with, the realtor that you're working with, can send you homes in areas that you definitely don't want to go to, right? Some people want to live in Essex County, Passaic County. Some people want to live in Bergen County. So make sure that you know where you would like to live. Know your wants and needs. Do you want a 3-bedroom? Do you want a finished basement? So on and so forth. When you find the right home, and make sure that you're working with a realtor that's not going to rush you. The biggest purchase most people will ever make in their lives are what? Real estate. So that's your biggest purchase. So you definitely want to take your time in doing that. You don't want to rush through that. It should not be about, well, the realtor wants to make a commission. She's tired of taking me around and I have to make an offer. Take your time. Even if it takes 2 years, you take your time and make sure that you find the right home for you. And then once you make the offer, you go into attorney review, then you do what's called going under contract. You can make no changes once you go under contract. That's why you have to make sure you love that home, because once you go under contract, the only thing that you can do to get out of that purchase is if there is an inspection and you don't agree on the fixing of whatever issues there are. That's the only way. And then they could keep your deposit too as well. All right, so you stay in close contact with your agent. The buying timeline, we're on that page now. The buying timeline, you're going to do your appraisal, you do your inspection, you get what's called a title to make sure that that home is yours. I heard something that Pastor said once, and I'm going to repeat it because it really stuck with me. He said, what did he say? Does anybody remember? He said, what is your title? What did he say was your title? Faith. Remember? One time he said, faith is your title. So if anyone is sitting here saying, I will never own a home, I can never do it, I don't have a penny saved up, I don't make enough money, if it's in your spirit to own a home, faith, you can definitely own a home. I didn't have anything when I bought my first home, but I had what? Thank you. Definitely had faith. All right, so it definitely can be done. And then, Antron, you talked about surprises, so you don't want any surprises. We're going to officially, you're then officially a homeowner once you get to the closing table and you get your title. But I wanted to bring us to the homeownership by race and ethnicity. Can we turn to, oh, you probably can't see that, the statistics. So pretty much it says that the African Americans own homes only compared to the Caucasian or other races at, ooh, I can't even read it myself, 41%? Oh, he said 41%. So, well, one second.
41% for African Americans, 73% for whites. And what that means is this, is that if we put 4 black people together, if we put 10 black people together, only 4 are going to be homeowners. And if you put 10 white people together, 7 are going to be homeowners. You know what, I'll talk at the end. Go ahead. So what we sometimes forget is that your first car that you bought was a hoopty. I think I paid $200 for my first car. I drove it until the wheels fell off. But I saved up enough that I could buy a $700 car, my next one. We have to look at houses like that sometimes too. We live in Paterson our whole lives. When it's time to buy, we refuse to buy. You've been living on whatever street you've been living on in Paterson all of that time. You done paid somebody's mortgage form, and now when it's time for you to buy, you refuse. We sometimes have to buy where we can afford so that we can step up into the next step. A lot of times we don't, we just forget. And then again, Violet hit on a couple of minutes ago, she said that we can't live together. If I told you how many people came to me and said, I want to buy, but they couldn't buy unless they got a cosigner, and they found that 3-family house so that they could have an apartment, and collect rent. And guess what? 2.5 years later, they're now ready to buy something else. So if you go into this thing thinking that I have to buy, because you do. I'm looking at rents in Paterson now.
Oh, okay, you're moving. No. But you're moving. Okay, move to the next slide. It's like you saw my slides. Look at the slide. So we're talking about rentals, and this is something that I wanted to touch on as it pertains to our young people, the millennials and the Gen Zs. The future is not bright for them when it comes to home ownership. So it behooves us right now to make it bright for them, because we have to purchase in order to make it bright for them. Do you see, I don't know if you notice, everywhere you look, high rises are going up, all luxury rentals. You see the prices, 1 to 2 bedrooms. You're looking at $2,500 minimum for a 1-bedroom, $3,500 for a 2, right? And this is a mortgage. You understand? So we have to do what we have to do now as middle-aged or older folks in order to make sure that our young people don't flush their money in the toilet. It really is, it's really that. They're going to be living in apartments, making people rich for the rest of their lives if we don't take chances right now. So that's and then I have information on rental versus owning, but that information, you guys, if you have any questions on that, you can ask, and then Sir Antron will answer that. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions, jot them down. You can write them down. I'm going to pass the baton on over now to Mr. Delano Dowdy, because we're moving, and then we're going to finally work with Dr. Gordon, who is a CPA. Oh, he's going to answer questions. He's a question and answer at the end. Yeah, so that's what he's going to do. So Delano, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. So my name is Delano Dowdy, and I have a very checkered resume. And I discovered later in life why. Because I like to get involved in a lot of different things. And it turns out, and that's what I'm going to cover today, I'm really an entrepreneur at heart. And no matter where I worked, I would try to be an entrepreneur in that job. And that would work sometimes. And for the most part, it did work, because I was very blessed to have managers who saw that in me and nurtured it. And so I was able to grow wherever I was planted. But I started in we call it the primary mortgage sector at a mortgage company many years ago. And I supported what Anton did for a while. And I learned there, and then I moved into compliance, and then I moved into the secondary market aspect of things. And but I've remained within what we call the credit space, financial services, the credit space. Then I incorporated my love for technology. And so, a lot of my conversations with Chris, because Chris is a techie, that came in. And so what I didn't know was that God was kind of training me, giving me different skills, because he had a purpose for me. And later on, I think probably like in 2019, my daughter was born, and I said something just clicked in my head, and I said, you've always had these ideas of starting your own business. You just need to just pick an idea and run with it. Because I would have these ideas, and I would see years later, somebody had used that same idea. I know they're on TV, and I'm like, what's going on? So I said, you know what, the next idea that comes up, I'm just going to take it and run with it. And I was on a juice fast. I'm into juicing, vegetable juices. I'd fast for days and weeks at a time. And I woke up one morning, and I was praying, and said, why don't you open a juice bar? And I'm, okay. And that evening, I went to look at spaces, and I saw a number in a window, called the guy up. In talking to him about what I wanted to do, I convinced myself even more, because he kept asking these questions, and I kept telling him, and I kept explaining. He didn't know what I was talking about, and I was explaining to him. And when I got off the phone, I was even more convinced than anything else that I really needed to do this. And I remember deliberating over this over days and days and days. And then I remember driving and just kind of thinking about it. And then God said to me, like, you need to just stop. You need to just realize that it doesn't matter what you do, as long as I ordain it, you're going to do well. And I stopped, and I think I was heading to the hospital to visit a friend of ours, and Dougie and Sandy were there. And I remember talking to them about this idea that I had and this epiphany that I had while driving there. And I'm like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to stop doubting myself. And 6 years later, Juice Bar is still open, doing well. The only thing I'd say, that I haven't done is I haven't opened more, even though I've had the opportunity to do so. But then, I'd say maybe 2-3 years after that, I visited Jamaica, and my brother had just bought a place in Jamaica, and through some conversations, I realized that, there's a lot going on in Jamaica where real estate is concerned, and I needed to get in on the action. And I started to spend a lot of time. That was right at the beginning of the pandemic, and I think I spent more time there than here during the pandemic, just exploring real estate and property development. And I started one property development company, and we laid out a plan for a 16-unit building in Mandeville, where I grew up. And so that was on stream, and we went to a conference, my partner and I, my aunt. I'm big on, very big on family and working with family. If you can't work with family, then who are you going to work with? And we went to this conference, and cut a very long story short, an idea came out of the conference to buy a hotel and with a number of people and convert it to condominiums. And this is almost a year and a half later, we're on to property number 3. And a couple of folks here are involved in that, Violet, Doug and Sandy are, I said the Thaws. And praise God, we're doing well. And we're continuing to grow. And so, what I wanted to cover today is, something that I think is very important, and that is the mindset of an entrepreneur. because it takes a certain mindset to be able to be an entrepreneur. And the first one here is you have to be vision driven, not money driven, right? So you got to be vision driven, not money driven. You have to have a goal in mind. And it helps when you're 100% convinced that God is behind that vision. Because a lot of times it's only going to be you and God that believe in this thing. And everybody else is going to think you're crazy. And you have to be able to go it alone, just you and God. No, if it's just you and not God, then I would strongly advise to reconsider. God has to be convinced, and He has to indicate to you that He is convinced and He's behind you. And once you have that, there's nothing that could stop you, and nothing should, because as an entrepreneur and as a visionary, oftentimes it's just going to be you and God, and you're going to have obstacles telling you, and the devil out there trying to convince you that you're going the wrong direction. And you're going to need that support from God to say, boy, you know what? Come what may, I'm going to stay the course, because that's what it takes to be an entrepreneur. A lot of times you're going to have a lot of challenges that come your way, and you have to kind of weave through it and look ahead. And being vision-driven is what helps you to weave through it. Now, some people say, but what about the money? The money is important. I'm not going to lie to you. But you always have to think of it as a tool. It's a tool to be used. It's a means to get to an end. But it can't be the end. Because a lot of times, as an entrepreneur, especially when you're moving into new spaces, the money won't be there. And sometimes for a lot of businesses, my favorite one is Amazon. Jeff Bezos, I'm a big fan of Jeff Bezos. I remember back in the late 2000s, I think I was in grad school at the time, and I remember doing a project of some sort, and we were looking at Amazon, and I remember seeing this newsreel that says that investors were the boardroom was getting upset with Jeff Bezos because he kept reinvesting, taking what they call loss leading strategies, where he would go into different spaces, lose money just to get market share. And they were like, this is crazy. This is going on for a while now. We need to, and guess what? He stayed the course. It wasn't about the money. And, those same people are like, right now, super happy that he stayed the course. Because what Jeff Bezos was doing, and what most entrepreneurs will have to do, is to stay the course for a long-term vision, and don't change your strategy until you've gotten to a certain point that will get you there. What Jeff Bezos was doing was creating an ecosystem. He was building and building and building that ecosystem. And then after this, it's very hard to stop Amazon at this point. Like you can't do without Prime. You feel like you can't live without Amazon, right? That's exactly what he was doing, right? So, last point on that is, biblically though, visionaries are very important, right? Visionaries are very important. And so as an entrepreneur, you play a very important role in creating new markets, in doing new things. And so that's important. You have to understand that. Now, the next one is you have to be willing to take risks. It's faith over fear. It's going to be faith over fear every single time. But it has to be calculated. We're not talking about being reckless. We're talking about, for me, and for many business owners, they'll tell you the biggest challenge you have isn't always managing your expenses or anything like that. Those are challenges that are there. It's knowing when and how to scale. Because there are times when, in order to get out of a rut, you need to scale. And so it's a difficult decision for people to scale, because it often means spending more money. It often means doubling down on your strategy. And it often means taking on new people, which will cause people to, you can't act out of fear at that point, because you're going to freeze up, you're going to go the wrong direction. And I'm telling you, for myself, in any other businesses that I've been in, the times where I hesitated for too long is where I lost the most money. where I knew for months I needed to hire 2 people or 3 people, or I needed to open for longer hours, or I needed to buy this new machine. And I give you an example. With the juice bar, the first juice machine I bought was like $15,000 for that machine. But we were stuck at the machine all the time. We're standing in front of it, juicing, to the point where we were concerned when people started buying a lot, because it meant we gotta go juice again. Believe it or not. And so, like, we're there hesitating. And I'm like, look, there's another machine that I need to buy. It's twice that money. It's 30 grand. But it would really, scale our ability to produce. And I'm telling you, for a year and a half, I pushed that decision. And till I just got to the point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to pull the trigger. Bought a machine. It's the best thing that we ever did. The worst thing I ever did was wait on that decision. Because we needed to scale. That's acting out of, at first I acted out of fear instead of faith. So now what I start doing is whenever I'm faced with a big decision, I always choose the option that requires the most faith. So I look at it and I say, what exactly is going to require the most faith? Because remember, you're operating from a place where God has already told you he's on board with this thing. So you're not worried about that part. Right? You're operating off of, look, we're doing this thing, Lord. You have more faith in me than I have in myself. Let's go. Half the time I'm saying to him, you must think a lot of me because I'm seeing some stuff here, but I'm trying not to operate out of fear. I'm trying to operate out of faith. And so I get to a decision point and I'm like, I look hard at it and I said, what is going to require the most faith? And that's the direction I pray on. And I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, I start praying. He's like, what are we doing? Just go do the thing. Don't come back to me. Look, we already said this. You're wasting time. Let's go. Let's do this. And that would be my advice to anybody in that position. Always out of fear, out of faith, not out of fear. As an entrepreneur, you have to be resilient and persistent. It starts again from that place where you know God is on board. He's already said so. He's already indicated, he's already given you all the signs through how you and him have your conversations that he's on board with this thing. And you are going to meet challenges. You are going to meet challenges on a daily basis. The devil is going to make sure of that. And everything, sometimes the only thing that is stopping you from just quitting, meaning all the indicators around you say quit, right? If you use the things around you, they say quit. They say, look, you're wasting your time. It's that mindset that God is in this and he wants me to succeed. So everything around you indicates quit, but you're still going forward. That means you have no evidence that you need to go forward. It's just faith. And oftentimes that is when you really double down and you have some serious conversations with God, and he could indicate to you what your next step is. Because it has to be a walk with him. Has to be a walk with him. And sometimes when you don't have answers, that's where it means you're stepping out of, you're moving out of step with him. And that's why you're in the dark. And it just means you need to take a step back to the drawing board, talk to him about it, and move forward. But stopping, and I love to read books about different entrepreneurs and their journey. And I could tell you, the one thing that all these guys have in common is this resilience. The only people that fail are the people that stopped. For me, failure just simply means you decided to quit. Because what is failure really? Somebody decided, I'm going to give up on this idea. If you keep going and you keep pivoting and you keep doing what you got to do, you're going to figure out a way. God is going to make a way. And oftentimes the reason you're having roadblocks is because that's not the way he wants you to do it. So you have to be resilient and persistent as an entrepreneur in order to be successful. One last story there. There's a well-known story of a man during the Colorado Gold Rush who invested heavily in mining equipment and dug tirelessly in search of gold. After weeks of effort and seeing no results, out of frustration, he sold the mine and all the equipment. The guy he sold it to, a junk dealer, bought in a geologist who did a study and found out that gold was within 3 feet of where they had stopped digging. Right. So the simple, don't quit too soon. And I always say that to myself. The darkest part of the night is just before dawn. So I'm more afraid of quitting too early, just before the finish line, than anything else. I think I'm more afraid of that than failing. So I just keep going. That keeps moving me forward. All right, another thing. You have to be solution oriented. You have to look at every single challenge as an opportunity. So issues and problems, for me, represent an opportunity. I look at them and I say, you know what? I get excited actually when I'm working on something and it's super complex. Because I say to myself, well, I get excited at solving it, but I also get excited. I'm like, okay, that's something to help me with competition. Because if I have a competitor, they're gonna have to solve this problem. And if I could get through it, and it's you know, I consider myself to be a tenacious person. If it's taking a challenge from me, that means it's a barrier to entry for somebody else. Because, you know, in business, you know, the big businesses, they create barriers to entry to keep themselves safe. So when I see a challenge, I said, okay, this is a barrier to entry. If I solve this, I don't know how many people can solve it. It excites me. But you have to be a person that gets excited at solving problems. Because, you know, at its core, that's what a business is. A business is simply a solution to a problem that you're able to charge for. And so you can't say you're a person in business that's afraid of problems. That doesn't make sense. Problems represent opportunities. And it may be a way for you to pivot. It may be a way for you to package something differently. And it may be a way for you to create a new channel for business. So problems should excite you. You have to be solution-oriented. My favorite Bible character, Joseph, was a problem solver. Wherever you planted that guy, he grew. He was a slave. He became the head of Potiphar's house, right? He got falsely accused, went to jail. He grew there as well because they saw him as a problem solver. And that's where he learned how to ration, how to budget. And when he went before Pharaoh and presented the dream, he didn't just present the problem. He didn't just present interpretation. He said, look, I also have a solution for you. Love Joseph for that. Absolutely love Joseph. So as an entrepreneur, we have to be Josephs. We have to be solution-oriented and not be afraid to fix challenges. All right. So I have one more, and then I have two bonus ones if we have time. But you have to be a lifelong learner. You have to be a lifelong learner. As an entrepreneur, you have to be growing daily. If you're not growing, you're dying. That's how I look at it. If I'm not doing something that's growing me personally, I know that something is wrong. And you could do that in many ways. You know, you could do different courses, you could read books. But you know, one of the most important things that I find, and it's something that is taught here, it's surrounding yourselves with people who have like mind, right? Surrounding yourself with people who will stretch your thinking and sharpen you. If you're always the smartest person in the room, you might need to change the rooms that you're hanging out in. You know, it's okay to be in there once in a while, but you gotta have some people who are gonna challenge what you think and not just drawing from you. So you want to be in spaces where you're providing, where you're that insightful person, but you also want to be in the rooms where you just have to sit quietly and listen and learn. That I think is one of the most important things because nothing stays the same. Knowledge is always increasing, and especially in certain spaces that you're working in, you're gonna have to know what the next thing is so you can be ahead. You don't want to be behind. And that's the only way to do that. Proverbs 13 verse 20 says, walk with the wise and become wise. Right? I have two more quickly. It's being self-disciplined and accountable. As Christians, we have to be accountable to God and only God and the standards that He has set for us. Because if we try to go by the world standards, you find yourself drifting. You have to go right back to square one. they will have you drifting in all different directions and pivoting in all different directions, and then you start to slowly compromise on your values. You have to have values that are rock solid and grounded in what Christ taught and nobody else. And you have to be accountable to yourself. Remember, you could hide from people, but you can't hide from God. So it's important to have that as your grounding. And the most important thing, the final one, is you have to be kingdom-minded. Everything you do has to impact humanity positively. And so it's liberating for me when I come up with an idea and I'm working on something and I say, you know what, the one thing I will have to make sure is that this is positive for humanity and that God could be proud of it. And if he can't, then I move on from it. If he can, it's very simple. I just ask him, hey, is this what you want me to do at this point in time? I look at what it takes. I look at my skill set. I look at my position and the timing. And if the answer is yes, I go at it with everything I have. But that's what I have for you guys. Thank you.
Amen. Let's give Delano a hand. Did you learn a lot during that segment? A whole lot. You gave him a hand already? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to please write down your questions for Delano. Also, we're going to go now to Dr. Gordon. Dr. Gordon is a CPA. And so you see how we're doing it in the order of when you make money, now you got to learn what to do with it, and with that tax guy there. So here you go.
The tax guy. I love that presentation, by the way. That is awesome stuff. All right, so I'm just going to jump to the last slide. You're not going to see it on the screen because I wasn't send it in on time. So into my last slide, but a little something about myself. So my name is Andrew Gordon. I am a CPA certified in New York, so don't hit me too much with Jersey stuff. I am based in New York. I am a professor, so I also teach accounting. I'm sort of all things accounting. You know, I work as an accountant, I teach accounting, and I do have a small practice where we take on certain clients. We try not to expand too much. We do have a tax side to it, so we do a lot of taxes, and occasionally we take on some small businesses, not a lot. So that is what you need to know about me. But I have enjoyed what I've heard so far. I think it is great. So what I want to talk to you about is, how do you financially get to all of these areas that we are talking about? And so my last slide is basically about 8 things that I have seen from people that are financially successful. All right, and the first one is exposure. All right, a lot of times we have all the ideas in the world. Okay, we have it. We're passionate. It's boiling up in us. We want to do everything that you've heard up here, but we don't know how to go about it. Talking to your sister, your cousin, your mom is probably not the best answer. Okay, you have to get outside of yourself and seek that exposure in order to make it happen. This is why I love when you said go to seminars, go to conferences, all of that stuff. I go to a lot of conferences, okay? Not to keep up my CPA and my CPA certification, but also I don't know what I don't know. And if I don't know what I don't know, that puts me in a position to not know. And because I want to know something beyond what I now know, I go to conferences and seminars. I seek that exposure. Okay, I want to know, so I go after the exposure that I want to know. And that brings me to gaining access. There is something that I've realized about life, especially with, minorities, African Americans, black folks. We are sometimes late to the access. By the time we get to the access, it is drying up a little bit, or the most of what is to be gained is gone because we are hesitant to get to the access. Okay, the best thing I can tell you in this arena is, don't be afraid to poke your head in. I always say, if I see a line forming over there, I'm always asking, what are they doing over there? Why are they forming a line over there? And I'm sticking my head in to see what's going on. Okay, They are, when I did my doctoral degree, I did it on, I wanted to answer one question. Why are there so few black CPAs? So I wanted to find that out. You know what I found? The test is hard, but we are smart, so we can conquer the test. But the biggest thing is exposure. We do not go after becoming accountants. Why? Because accounting is insular. Children of accountants become accountants. Friends of accountants become accountants. Okay? So what we find is these seminars that we are doing, we're actually getting better because we start running these seminars amongst ourselves, because we realize that the problem is predominantly exposure and access. And you cannot get to anywhere if you don't know. So access, exposure and access, exposure and access. So ask yourself, what is it that I need to do? What is it that I want to do? All right, you're passionate about it. Sometimes the passion is just yours. Nobody else in your family has it. Okay, so if you try to get the information from them, they're not going to be able to help you. So now you have to step outside your comfort zone and go get the information. Now here's the amazing thing. It's almost lazy if you cannot get information today. The internet, YouTube is something else. Okay, so it's almost lazy if you cannot get the information. Right? So go after it. Start your own research. You're probably going to stumble up on some of the folks that are up here. And then you start calling them. You start emailing them. You start texting them. You're saying, can we meet? Can we get to the information that I need? The third thing I want to say is you have to do a self-assessment. And I was doing a seminar with some young folks, and you know, they told me they wanted to do so much. And I said, how are you going to do it? You have to do that personal assessment. It is possible sometimes that you do not have enough equity to do what you want to do. But you have to know that. You know, courage and ideas and planning are great, but you have to have a way to get there. And that starts with your self-assessment. Okay, it really starts with your self-assessment. Looking at yourself not through rose-colored glasses, but realistically. Okay, do I have what it takes to get there? And I'm not going to get into mindset and all of that stuff. I think you did a great job with talking about that. So I'm going to roll on to what I called emotional intelligence. Business is an interesting thing. When you get into business, you realize that there is no room for certain types of emotion. And I think everybody up here will agree with me that if you are a very emotional person that take things a little too personal or color it with the glasses that you should not color it with, you're not going too far. You're not going too far. When you step in a room to ask people for money, okay, when you step in a room to talk about business, to negotiate with money, there is no room for emotion. These folks that are doing business with you, they're not going to hold your hand and say, that's not hurting your feeling, is it? They will literally take a plan that you bring and they will tear it up. They will say, what is this? What is this? What are you going to do about this? What are you doing about this side? What do you do? Because they're investing money into your ideas. They want a ROI, a return on their investment. So they're not in business to solve the world's social issues. They're in business to make money. So you are going in business to make money. So a certain level of intelligence has to accompany your brilliant plan. Okay? When you get information that is not consistent with what you thought it should be, don't sulk. Okay? Go back to the drawing board. All right? Look at it and ask yourself, okay, how can I redo this so that I can come back stronger? So you need a certain level of emotional intelligence. Another thing is you need help. So I'm listening to your story about the guy that was digging and then quit. And notice what you said happened when he sold it. What did the other guy do that came in? What did he do? What did he do? He brought in a geologist. Now, I'm thinking if the other guy, before he stopped, said, I wonder how far I am from my goal. Let me go bring in a geologist to tell me that. I don't think he would have stopped. So sometimes we, within ourselves, we do not know the answer. I'm a CPA, and everyone comes to me with every question having to do with the whole range of finance and accounting and everything. And sometimes I have to tell them, I do not know the answer to that. Okay? Because there are many different avenues of practice within our profession. Okay? But I can get the answer to you because I probably have a friend that specializes in that, and we can get the answer. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Even when you're cooking, you're in your business and it's rolling along and it seems as if you understand what you're talking about, ask for help. Mentors, resources. And here's another piece that's kind of right within my wheelhouse, compliance. Many people have ideas, they start businesses, the businesses are going, and all of a sudden the business is in trouble. Because there is no way around compliance. There's absolutely no way around compliance. So wherever you have your business operating, there is some kind of municipality or regulatory body that has requirements for that business. Your idea, this is why when you form a business, you notice they say, we need to be able to contact this business. We need an address. And if you're using an agency, they say make sure that agency is forwarding everything to you because they're going to send you stuff. Okay, they're going to send you stuff. So when they send you stuff, they expect for you to reply, right? So be compliant, all right? Be compliant. It is sad that sometimes when folks come to me, it's when it's the help. It's like, help. We need help. We need to dig out of where we are. And when I look, I'm like, 3 years? Okay, 3 years is like the limit. When you get to 3 years, that's when everyone goes the hammer time, right? Let's drop the hammer. So compliance is your friend. Don't bury your head in the sand. Don't ignore notices and letters, okay? Be compliant. And that goes for personal lives too, okay? Personal lives. Be compliant, all right? The IRS is no joke. They like to wait until you are in a position to pay them lots of money, and then they come, okay? So when you're little and nothing is going on, they'll ignore you. They're like, it's the effort here. But then as your business is growing and things are looking good, they're like, let's pay that person a visit. So what I'm trying to say is do not under the guidance of seek help, don't forget to be compliant. And sometimes becoming compliant means you need the most help. Okay? You need the most help. Go after that help. If you need to hire a lawyer, do that. If you need to hire an accountant, do that. If you need to hire a financial advisor, do that. Whatever it is you need in order for you to be compliant, do that. It does not pay to not be compliant. Okay? To not be compliant. Now, there's another one that I have, and I usually throw this in for younger audiences, okay? And it's about marketability. Sometimes you have great ideas, sometimes you have great skill set, sometimes you have a lot going on for you, whether it's your business or whatever, but you just can't sell it. Marketability. You just can't sell it. So you have a great idea, okay, but you can't sell it. What do I mean? You can't get financing for it. Nobody will buy it. Something is going on. Maybe this is just that you can't articulate it. You don't know how to become marketable. Right? On a personal setting, I say to the young people, when they are trying to be gainfully employed. Okay, good. They say to me, I have done so, I can't seem to get hired. And I said, tell me what you're doing. Give me a few things what you're doing. I said, well, I'm not sure I would buy that either. Someone has a business plan and they say, I'm going to make a pitch. I said, go ahead, let me hear it. And I said, I don't believe you. You don't sound as though you are convinced about your own business plan. So why would I be convinced? Okay, you do not know how to market what you're doing, right? That goes back to what I'm talking about. Maybe a little help, maybe practice. Okay, because here's the truth. When you have a great idea, you're fired up, right? You're fired up. And when you're telling it to people, you're rushing, you're fired up. You're like, yeah, I got to get this done. And somehow you think that everybody is getting it the way you're getting it. Well, it's your idea, and you have the passion for it. So you have to let me catch that passion, right? So I can invest in your idea. So somebody can invest in your idea. So the banker, when you go into bankers, they have this like look on their face sometimes, right? Like they're all like this. I don't know if they learn when they decided to become banker. I don't know if this is the look that they get, but they all seem to have that look. But notice something, as they're buying your plan, their mood starts changing. Their arms are dropped. They start leaning into the table like this. You have them. The body language starts changing, okay? If you talking to the banker and the banker remains like this, at the end he's going to say, yeah, we'll call you. So practice, all right? Talk to someone. This is where you can talk to people in your church, wherever it is. Talk to someone. Our churches have so many professionals in them that have so much value that we don't tap into. Okay? Tap into some of those values, but you have to become marketable. And the last one I say is practice altruism. This is my last one, practice altruism. And what I mean by that is I realize that as you're going through life and you become successful, which I'm hoping all of us are successful, there is something that happens when you start giving back, giving back, giving back. It's as if the Lord says, thank you, your blessing is going to be multiplied. Right? So as you're going through, you have your plan, you're executing your plan, you're successful, don't forget to give back. Okay? Don't forget to give back. That is the crowning piece. Okay? That is the crowning piece, giving back, giving back, giving back. After I do all my lectures, when I'm teaching, after I do all my lectures, at the end, I save a little time to give them some personal information, just help information. And they seem to enjoy that the most. Okay, the most. I get a lot of requests for recommendations. Why? Not because of the accounting that I'm teaching them, which sometimes can be very, very exciting. No, it's because of the information at the end, where I'm telling them how to better their lives. You know, the decision making that they have to have, the mindset that they have to have in order to be successful. Right? And I echo your sentiments. Without the right mindset, it's not happening. It's not, you cannot become a CPA. For those of you who want to become a CPA, you will not become a CPA if you don't decide, I want to be a CPA. Okay. The exam is hard, as was rightfully stated. Right? The schooling is interesting, right? But all of us can do it. But you have to make your mind up to do it, right? So what I'll say is this. Last thing, taxes. Because I know, you like, talk about taxes a little bit. One last thing, and I'll say, and it's about taxes, okay? You have to spend just a little time to understand your personal tax situation, your business tax situation. Taxes on the surface appears complicated. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. Your personal taxes is not that complicated. Spend a little time You throw it off on a guy like myself. You're like, okay, it's your responsibility. You know what the IRS says? It's not my responsibility. It's your responsibility, right? So spend a little time to understand what's going on with taxes. If you're a business owner, spend a little time to understand what's going on with your taxes from a business standpoint. You don't have to get granular and start getting every little single thing, but understand it on the surface. And by the way, you should do this from a financial perspective for everything that you're doing. Because you have the idea for the business, remember, the business goes as far as the finances goes. But you as the owner, as the person that's doing it, you as the taxpayer, all of that, you have to have what we call a working knowledge of the finances. You have to have a working knowledge of your tax situation. And I could give you that one phone call. I can run through certain things with you. I can give you an Excel spreadsheet. As a matter of fact, I'll give it to you and you can give it to them. You put your gross in it and it'll tell you what goes on. It'll just calculate everything for you. So you can plan, right? You can plan for the year. I make $200,000. This is what my tax likely will be, right? And you can say, okay. And every year you should be assessing your tax situation. Every year. So when you go to your job, don't just fill out a W-4 and then just leave it there for 10 years. That's not how it works. Okay? Every day you should be assessing. You should not want to get a refund from the IRS. You should not want to get a refund from the IRS. Because it means that the IRS had your money all year and they're not giving you interest on that refund. You should scale your taxes so that at the end of the year, it's fall within plus or minus $500, somewhere in there. So you would have had the benefit of all your money all year. All year. So every time someone comes to me and they talk about a big refund, I say, well, if you're getting a refund, there's two things happening. Probably not making as much money as you'd like to make. And you're doing it wrong. Right? And your accountant should be telling you this. Right? The IRS is holding on to too much of your money that you should be using to do everything that was talked about up here. So a little planning is what I'm saying. Every year you should look at your refund and you should say, why am I getting back so much money? And you should revisit your W-4. Yes. I'm sorry? But I'm going to end there. I'm going to end there because I see the
All right, I know do we have a lot of questions? We have some questions. Just give me 1 second before. Thank you. Let's give Dr. Gordon a hand. Let's give him a hand. He did such a thorough job. Before we go to the questions, just hold on to your questions, write them down. I do have one. We need to utilize our youngest person here on the panel. So for Chris, I have a question, and then there's someone that has a question for Chris. He has to go. He has a concert to go to. So before he asks the question, I wanted to ask Chris. He's a techie. We know that. But Chris also mentioned previously that he had paid off all of his student loans in a certain period of time, and I was extremely impressed because I know people my age probably still paying off their student loans. So, and Chris is also a homeowner from a few years ago, right? How many years ago now, Chris? 5 years. Guess who he used? Just guess. Thank you so much. So, yeah, so he is a homeowner as well. And Chris, I was really impressed when you said that you paid off your student loan. Was it 3 years? In 3.5 years, he paid off his student loans. So let's give him a hand. That's not something that's light to be. Say that again. How much was your student loan?
$110,000.
$110,000 he paid off within 3.5 years. Okay, now how did you do it? Really quickly, and then I have a question for you before. You want to ask the question before you leave? No? Let's let some. Go ahead, Chris. Tell us real quick, and then Chris is going to ask the question.
Okay. So I guess the most boring part of the answer is it's just math. So I graduated from grad school in 2014, May of 2014. Um, and shortly after that, I had an accident with my car, like maybe in June, I think. That caused me to clean out my bank account to sort of like pay for the damages and everything. So I actually had like maybe about $95,000 in debt, and I had no money in my bank account. Like all of it went to fixing the car. And so I didn't get my first job until I think it was July 1st. I started working at this company called Varick Media Management as a platform engineer. So I graduated from Oakwood University with my bachelor's in computer science, and then I also graduated from Carnegie Mellon University with a master's in information technology, information security, and that's where, and that's where.
Everyone, sorry, is everyone hearing him? Are we hearing? Okay.
Um, and that's where my student loans came from. So I think it was like altogether 95, a little over 95,000. And it was in California. It was at Silicon Valley campus, which, you know, in Silicon Valley, they have all those big tech companies there, which is always eager to hire newly grads from Carnegie Mellon. But I opted not to stay in California because, one, there wasn't, none of my friends, none of my family were there. It was just me. And two, like, I didn't really like the culture. Like, the culture there is a bit, it seems a bit separate from like the rest of America. And so I was like, yeah, I think I'd rather just, go back home and then like find a job either in Pittsburgh, where was my first semester was located, or New York or New Jersey. And so the math of it is, I just went back home. I got my first job making $70,000 a year. So my paycheck was actually $2,014.72 after taxes, and I put $1,500 every paycheck to my student loans. And I gradually increased it because I got raises. I actually got a new job a year later making $93,000. So I bumped it up to $2,000 a year later, every paycheck for 3.5 years, and I was done. And then, along with those 3.5 years, I got promoted, and also my payment increases, but my monthly student loan expense went to zero. So even though I started paying it in December of 2014. So even though like maybe 2 years later I still had like maybe $50,000 worth of debt, it was about even based on the money I was still able to put away, like the extra $500 or $1,000. And so when I was out of debt, my net worth was like in the black. Like I was probably like maybe 50K at that point. But yeah, that's I guess that's like the basic math of it all. It's just consistency and the unwillingness to keep that debt for the rest of my life.
Give him a hand, guys. That is also, as Mr. Antron said, discipline. I'm sorry, the question was right over there, Doug. Right back there. That is absolute discipline. I'm speechless. That is awesome. Okay, we have a question from this young man who has to leave in a minute, but he had a desperate question he wanted to ask.
Hi.
Christian.
My question was, what was your path to saving money and financial gain over the years? Right now, nowadays, there's a lot of talk about like 401ks, Roth IRAs. Do you believe in setting aside money in those things, or what was your path and your best advice for financial gain in the future and retirement?
So it depends on what your goal is. So if you work at a job that has 401k benefit and they have matching, I'm always going to advise you to do 401k because that's just free money. Like if your company's saying, oh, for every amount of dollars you put in your 401k, we're going to match it up to 5%. There's no reason for you not to have your company giving you money for free, tax free. So that I'm always going to advocate for that. On the other hand, for example, I started a business like 2017, and it's gotten pretty good traction. But it was more so like a consulting type of business. So I would build applications, web applications, mobile applications for clients. And then very quickly, I decided that I didn't really like how the clients were like managing the business. Like it would pretty much be up and they'd pay money for like 1 or 2 years and then the business would go under because of mismanagement. And so I said, okay, instead of actually taking on clients, I think I'll just want to build my own product. And so I actually, I didn't have, it was just me at that point. I didn't have like revenue to hire anybody because I didn't have a product yet. But a lot of my money was going to either savings, investments, and things like that. And I was actually watching this one YouTube video where it seems cliche, but they said that a lot of the reasons why people don't succeed in business is because they're afraid to bet on themselves. And what that seems to mean is like, oh, you're just not going to take the initiative to start your business. And part of that actually means instead of investing money into the market, which is somebody else's business, why don't you take that money that you would invest in somebody else's business into your business? And so if your goal is to start a business, instead of investing in Tesla, instead of investing in Amazon or Google or Meta, take all the money that you invest, because that's pretty much what your 401k is investing in the S&P 500 and all that. Take that money and just put it in your business. Because at the end of the day, when you use the money you could put in your business into somebody else's business, you're hoping that they make you wealthy instead of you making yourself wealthy. So it all depends on what your goal is. Like if you want to make yourself wealthy and you want to bet on yourself, I would advocate instead of putting money away in like a 401k or like in the market, just take that money, and put it and set it aside to like hire an employee that'll actually, help you build the wealth that you want.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so this question is from MedSponge online, and MedSponge says, to start a culture, I'd like to start a business with a unique approach. Let's say it's a juice bar. Can you patent the way the service is delivered or structured in order to eventually franchise it?
I'm no patent expert, but I know the basic thing is that your idea has to be something that is unique and has never been done before, and it has to be repeatable in some form, and you're able to document that. Where for juice bars, and the thing is, okay, so I think what the person is getting at is, because sometimes we think we have to have something extra special that nobody has in order to be successful, and that's a myth. You just have to package and present whatever it is you're doing enough to hold a market share. That's it. Oftentimes, we live in America, and it's a place that's abundant. There are so many different fast food places between here and a 10-mile radius, and people want to eat somewhere different every day, and they're all surviving. They just do what they do, and they stay in their lane and they keep offering their product and they offer it consistently. And you will reach somebody in the market. Today, what I would say in today's day and age, with technology the way it is, you just have to know who your market is and consistently reach out to them so that they know where you are, how to find you, how to spend with you, and so forth. So don't worry about patenting anything. Just offer a good product.
Another question over here. Oh. Question over here.
I have one question for the young man right here. Yes. No. It is on? It's on. Can you hear me? So you said your paycheck was like 2,000 something for the month or per month, right? Or weekly or bi-weekly?
Per paycheck, so it's twice.
Bi-weekly.
Yes, bi-weekly.
And bi-weekly you pay $2,000 for your student loan.
Well, I initially started paying $1,500.
15, right.
And then as I got a new job a year later that paid me $93, and so my check was like $2,400, so I paid $2,000.
So you have like 400 and something left from that check. So did you have any other expenses or?
I was living at home, so
living at home rent free. Okay,
Yeah.
no more, not a lot of expenses.
yeah.
Okay, so that's a plus.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just had actually a tax question. I can't recall your name. I'm sorry.
Andrew.
Andrew. Yeah. So it's a hard story to tell because it was a hard lesson. So in 2019, my aunt passed away, and she didn't have any kids, so she did well for herself. She was a registered nurse for about 35 years, and she left a decent amount of money for me and my brother and my cousins. But I didn't know that we had to pay taxes on it.
Yes, inheritance tax.
Yeah, so I make a great income, and which I found out later, they added that money to my income.
Yes.
Yeah, so that put me well over like $170,000. So whose job was it to let me know that? Because where I come from, I'm from Jamaica, people don't usually leave anything for anybody. So was that the tax person that I was using?
Well, yes. So great question, by the way, and I'm glad you asked it. So it is a part of when you meet with your tax preparer every year and they ask you, is there anything new? Okay. Tell them everything that you think is coming up on the horizon, especially because for that situation, you would have to know that, the possibility exists, right? That you might be the beneficiary, or you don't know.
I kind of got the money towards the end of the year, and like November, December-ish.
So then the short answer is that unless you knew beforehand and you can have the discussion to kind of help mitigate some of that situation, there's really, because your accountant would have to know this and kind of say, okay, your taxes or your income is going to shot up $170,000. So let's start paying something, quarterly, so that at the end you're not hit with that big bill. But if you did know, there's no way to mitigate that, unfortunately. You kind of have to just, take it and then satisfy that down the road. Yeah. So the short answer is, if you knew beforehand, have the discussion so that you can put plans in place to mitigate the liability that's going to come. But for everyone listening, yes, there is a transfer tax that you have to pay whenever wealth. You see these discussions that they're always having about taxes, and they're saying, we need to reduce the inheritance tax and we need to do away with this tax. This is what we're talking about. Okay? When you start operating in the space where you're moving wealth from generation to generation, you have to put some stuff in place to mitigate those transfers, the taxes from those transfers. And also, as you're moving in and out of investment, don't forget capital gains. Okay, and you have to start talking about those to mitigate those. So it is all a part of what you're doing for your tax planning, but it sounds to me like there's nothing that could have been done because you didn't know about it. And if you didn't and you didn't have that conversation, then there's no way to mitigate some of that, unfortunately.
Yeah,
But it is a great lesson to learn. And for everyone here, if you know you're going to be the beneficiary of an estate, start planning.
I just asked that question just because there's still.
Oh, and if you are going to be, and if you're a person giving it, notify the beneficiaries so that they can start making the plans also.
Yeah, I asked a question just because there's still some funds tied up in probate for years now. It's going back from 2019. So we got some family members that are still fighting over.
Yeah, there's some contesting going on.
Yeah, so I think I know what mitigate means. So what you mean is just prepare your.
Yeah, by mitigate I mean because you're now faced with $170,000 at the end, you basically have to pay tax on that increased income.
Yeah, 15,000.
Had you known about it, what I would propose is that you start making some quarterly payments earlier on during the year, so that at the end you don't have this big bill, basically, from the IRS or from, I'm assuming,
IRS, yes.
So they've hit you with this big bill.
Yeah, 15,000.
So that's what I'm talking about. So by mitigate, I mean you're still gonna have to pay.
Oh yeah.
But you're just paying it earlier so that it's not a big burden at the end of the year.
Chip it away, yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
The gentleman at the end, you said if your company is matching 401k, like 3% or 5%, we should definitely take it. However, it's not really free money, it's pre-tax, because when you reach to the age that you're going to earn that money, you still have to pay Uncle Sam. So either you pay them now or you're going to pay them later. So most times the Roth IRA, they take the taxes now, so you don't have to pay later when you reach to 59 and a half or 60 years or so on. Am I making sense?
Yeah, but you're wrong. The 3% tax is actually free. So,
Yeah.
for example, if you put 3%, let's say 3% of your paycheck into 401k, that's pre-tax money, right? But then your company matches a percentage of what you put in. That's money that they're giving you into your account.
Yes, but at the end of the end, when it's vested, and you're ready to take that money, even if the company give you still have to pay taxes on that money in the end, right?
Yeah, but that's money that you didn't have to work for. That's money that your companies gave you.
Listen, they're not. Yeah, they give you. They give you. Let me tell you something. They're paying us so little that what they're giving us, 3% is what you should have been getting already. So I
Wait,
understand what
I
you're
don't
saying
understand.
because they're already.
Wait. I mean, that's a wage concern. That's not a 401k concern.
Anyway, I understand what you're really saying.
Yeah.
I do what you're saying. I understand because they had to move some money from some place. And they didn't even give me all of it. And they're telling me that I have to do withholding taxes. And after that, they're telling me that, oh, part was your Roth IRA and part was your 401k because I did the Roth. But they still take part for 401k, which if I did not do that, I would not have known. I thought everything was my Roth. They're still hiding something, trust me.
The way they design the 401k, 403bs is that you put the money in pre-tax, all right? So it lowers your taxable income. Coming out, the idea is you are retired. So your income bracket is a lot lower, right? So whereas you might be up in the 24, the 35, 7, now you are retired, and so you're pulling money out at a reduced tax rate. That's the benefit for doing that. Yes. Yes, yes. And that is smart movement of money actually.
We have a hand in the back.
Oh, Dr. Gordon, you talked about eight, I guess, things to be financially successful. I got 7. It's the exposure, the access, the self-assessment, emotional intelligence, compliance, marketability, and practice altruism. I missed one. I don't know which one I'm missing. Sorry? Oh, seek help, seek help. I guess I typed. Okay, and then I just want to make a comment on what Delano said about the story he gave, and that the comment is, don't quit. Quitting is failing. And the darkest hour before dawn, it's darkest before dawn. And when God is in it, you will be successful. I've happened to watch Delano run his juice bar when he started it, and I was like praying hard and cringing when he kept putting money in, and I'm so happy now that he's successful. And I just want to say what he said about not quitting, he lived it. So I just want to make that comment. I also want to make my last comment. It's about Christopher. I watched him have one pair of sneakers, not a car, until he paid off his student loan. So it's not only that he lived at home, he really buckled down and stayed without a lot to pay off his student loan. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. There's a hand in the back. Amen. Amen.
I have a tax question. Tax, yes. Do you think for transfer of wealth, do you get a trust? Do you get a trust to transfer the wealth, or do you use a will?
Well, okay. So, when are you planning on doing the transfer? So usually you set up a trust because you want to make sure that certain things are protected, right? And you want to make sure that the beneficiaries have a certain way to get to those assets outside of the conventional will process. Everyone here should have some kind of a will, by the way, that dictates what happens when you are no longer with us, so that you don't end up in a probate situation and everyone is fighting over it where no one benefits from it, right? So trusts are great because it really designates certain parts of your assets for a specific purpose. You know, wills are great because it says what should happen in the case each of us are not around anymore. So it depends on what you're doing and what you want to do and the purpose of it. It's not a one is better than the other. They do two different things actually. You know, they really do two different things. Will, ultimately, every one of us should have one. Trust, it's specific to something that you'd like done for a specific purpose. Which one is taxed more? Depends on how you set up the trust. You might be able to alleviate certain situations. You know, we are live, yes? Yes. But ultimately, the will, because of the massive transfer that occurs at the end, will probably be the one with the most taxes.
Okay, great, great. We're running out of time, so I have 2 questions here that I'd like to address. We don't want to weary the saints. So one question is, how can a person afford to purchase a multifamily home at the current prices, they say 500 to 700K, as a single person so that they can use that property to purchase their second home through the bank-approved process? Would you like them to reach out to you directly, or is that something? Okay, sure.
But the simple way to do it is, if you can't afford it by yourself, you need a partner. And a trusted partner. And what we have to understand that is that it's a whole lot easier for us to get like-minded people to do the same thing and say we're going to hold this house for 2 years. And if we buy smart, at the end of 2 years, hopefully you'll either have enough equity so that you can have your down payment, or it might be going well. And you say, we can do this again as a group and keep going. There's a whole lot of cultures that do everything as a family. That means you get 5 brothers, and right here in Paterson, there's 7 brothers who actually all own houses, who actually have gone through the system, and now they don't even need a bank anymore. They can sell. So what we have to do sometimes is not be afraid to have a partner so that we can move forward.
Okay, so the next question that I have is, a person who is renting would like to open a business and also purchase a multi-family home. Which would you suggest they do first? Anyone on the panel would like to answer that?
Okay, so HUD has a program called the 203K. What the K lets you do is buy multifamily properties with a commercial piece. You cannot do any rehab to the commercial piece, and you have to do rehab to the units. Beauty of it is it's only 3.5% down. So you can go 3.5% down. The building downstairs, you have your commercial piece, and as long as you have the rentals upstairs, and you have to qualify income. And again, if you don't do it by yourself, get a partner, and you buy it, and you both do it.
And I would suggest that you do set up a business. It is always a good idea when you're doing business to formalize the business, because it helps to do a lot of things. But one of the greatest benefit of it is to separate your personal from the business. Okay, separate your personal from the business. And just wanted to throw something else in there because we're talking about partners and having partners and all of that stuff. I've seen a lot of LLCs like the coolest thing ever. Easy to set up, easy to operate. Instead of these long, drawn-out partnerships, 2 or more people just form an LLC, and the IRS actually will treat it as a partnership. I will encourage you strongly, have a operating agreement. I cannot stress that enough. Please have an operating agreement. When you have ideas, they're great. When money starts flowing in, everyone remembers what they said. So make sure you have an operating agreement.
Okay, so I may be able to take one more question, but before we do that, thank you for that answer too. That's a good answer. So before we do that, I have a question. Is there anyone here that invited one guest with them today? Okay, anyone else? You. Is she here? She's here? Is she hiding? She's here? You invited a guest? Are they here? Oh, okay. So yes, there's a gift coming to you. You invited a guest? Where's the guest? We had wonderful, wonderful 2 gifts so far. Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for coming. I'm sorry? Where's your guest? Wonderful. Okay, great. So that's 3 gifts we have. So anyone that invited a guest needs to see me afterwards. I have a gift for you. And is your question one? Just one? Okay. Do you have a mic? Do we have a mic for her?
You talk about partnership in buying a home, whether it's with family or stranger. What would become of that home after you buy a second home? How would we break away from that one? Because in case we don't want to continue with the partnership.
Okay, so when it's time to sell, and anytime the relationship goes sour, it's time to sell. So when you sell, it's normally whatever percentage you put in. It's just like just like our professor said, the operating agreement that you put together, there's no arguments. It's like, this is what we agreed to. This is what happens.
Ms. Violet, there's one last question, if you could.
Is it going to be short?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to leave out Delano. I just wanted to thank him for your telling us your story. Very inspirational to me. I didn't grow up with my dad. He's in Jamaica, and he's been an entrepreneur all his life, but I didn't grow up with him. So I just want to ask you real quick. I like to study entrepreneurs, also watch documentaries on YouTube, History Channel. I love your entrepreneurial spirit. Where do you think that came from? Because what I noticed is usually entrepreneurs come from entrepreneurs. Thanks.
So it turns out that from both sides of my family, it turns out my paternal granddad was an entrepreneur, and he was the first one in the district to have a little shop with a cambio, a place where you change your money. He had, it was the first like variety store because he had everything from flour to hardware supplies. And so that's on my father's side, and then on my mother's side, turns out they were entrepreneurs too. So I couldn't hide from it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you for that question. I have one more question in the front.
One comment. When you talk about partnership, I just like to say the Hispanics do very well at this. And you see them, partnering and buying many homes and selling in their all own homes. So I just want to encourage our African American people. Stop being so, I don't even want to say selfish, but don't think that you can do this by yourself. Sometimes we need to partner up. We need to do more of that and pool our resources together so that we can be successful and achieve our goals.
Yeah, and one comment on that. So the particular business that I'm in currently in Jamaica really leverages that, where we come together as communities. The first property had 26 investors. Second property had another 28 investors. And this third property is going to be closer to 70 plus investors. And it's about being, like for myself, being the principal on it, being fully transparent with what we're doing, what the challenges are, what the risks are, what the mitigants are, and just always communicating. I love the fact that, most of the individuals, if not, I'd say 90% of the individuals involved in all of those are Jamaicans in the diaspora. And so, yeah, that is something I'm particularly proud of. And, we see where other cultures are doing it, and we're told that we can't do it. I reject that. So if you hear anybody saying black people can't do whatever, you tell them about what we're doing. It's 100% possible. You just have to, align yourself with the right people. I credit God 100% because I could tell you, I can't see people's hearts and I can't pick them, and I just kind of move and just let God bring people to me. I kind of open it up, and when people come, I kind of feel them out, and God kind of gives you situations and opportunities to see people's true colors sometimes, and you just kind of move to the left and then move to the right. But the key thing is transparency, honesty, and having faith in people.
I'll just make mine very short. I have experience from this sharing, and it's true what you say. You must be sure of who you choose to be partner, because even in family, it's still you think that you're choosing the right person, and yet it's not so at all. Sometimes it breaks up very badly. Yes, and I've had the experience, so I know. That's it.
Thank you for that comment. So we're going to wrap up. I just wanted to thank everyone on the panel for your participation, for being here. and for being willing to share, because that's what's very important. And I hope that you guys really benefited. Did we benefit? Wonderful, wonderful. So we'll definitely try to do this again. I did want to give Delano an opportunity to say whether or not there are any more opportunities available for individuals that may be interested in hearing more information about your third project, for which I can attest it is an awesome opportunity. So are there any more opportunities available?
Yes, there are. And so I'll give it a pitch in like 2 minutes. So basically, in Jamaica right now, you have a lot of what we call medium-sized, small to medium-sized hotels that are just sitting there. The owners, for whatever reason, have lost the luster for doing what they do. They've probably retired or just decided to move on. The kids don't want to have anything to do with it. So you have a lot of these properties all over the island. And so what we're doing is we're going in and we are purchasing we're doing what we call coordinated purchases, where if there's 30 units on a property, 30 people come together and I calculate what it costs to acquire, renovate, and convert, and pass on just that cost in addition to my fee to the individuals. And what you find is that with that done and done right, your investment is less than $150,000. In most cases, it's like in this last one is less than 130 turnkey. So you're coming into a property, and most of these properties are seaside properties. Yeah, so it's cliffside, beachside. This last one is a beachside property, and yeah. So this last property is 83 units, and we have about 20 units left. So if you're interested, you could just let Sister Violet know, and she'll connect you with me. And it's all cash. Just to be clear, it's all cash. But we could show you how there are ways to access cash to do it. We do that so we don't have to deal with the bank. We move a lot faster, and it's a lot safer because when we go in, we own it outright. We don't own any bank. We don't own anybody. And it's awesome income producing capabilities. The first property is already renting out to we're taking occupants already, and yeah, people are making the money.
So I think I did mention that there would be a great opportunity here. You can hear more about it. Just reach out, and like Delano said, this is a part of sharing, because he could have done it a different way, where he becomes an instant millionaire pretty much. But he's interested in sharing with people, and I can attest to the fact that this is literally on the beach. So this is a great opportunity. So think about it, pray about it. And if you have the means, and even if you don't have the means, pray about it. The means may come along. Means may come up. All right? And remember that you can always work it out with someone else that you can trust and work with. All right? So once again, we want to thank everyone for tuning in. We thank you guys that stayed with us live. I was watching. Everybody stayed, and more came, and they stayed. So we are so grateful, so thankful, and we hope that you got so much from this. We hope to do this again in a bigger way. And God bless you, and have a wonderful week. God bless.